everyone, welcome again to 5 Minute Fix. I'm Kim and this is Bridget.
Hi everyone.
Today we're going to talk about tantrums. I wanted to start by asking you, what is a tantrum?
Well, I think many parents know what a tantrum looks like, and tantrums can range and cover a whole variety of things. But I think, screaming, yelling, it can be a short time when the child's crying to a very, very long time, as some of us have witnessed. Kicking, biting, what it is a big burst of emotion that the child gets and they just don't know how to deal with it yet. So it just comes out in such a variety of ways, and it can seem so distressing when you see it.
So why do tantrums happen?
I think tantrums happen because children are at a really specific stage of development, and often a really common age for tantrums is between 1 and 3, and they do happen later, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But when they're between ages 1 and 3, that's actually what's developmentally appropriate for them at the time, is to have tantrums, and that's because their emotional regulation hasn't developed yet. So they get this big burst of emotion and they don't actually have the skills to regulate that emotion and manage that. And although we don't notice it probably as adults, internally when we get really angry, we kind of manage it. We stop ourselves often from bursting out with that anger and kind of try and contain it, and that's what it is that children are still trying to develop. I think another reason is that children, they're just developing their sense of identity in the world. So they've got this sense of them little self as a person, and often with very little children, they'll just have a tantrum because they want the blue plate, not the green plate, and they get this big burst of anger, and it's really just that they're realising that they're a little person, they've got power, they've got a sense of identity, and they can choose something, and that's really important to them. So it's developing those power struggles and their ego as well. I think also developmentally, language, they don't have much language yet, so they can't actually, they're very angry or frustrated, but they can't communicate it. When you put all these areas of development together, you can kind of see the picture of why it happens. Cognitively, like the way that they understand what's going on can be different, or not quite in the same way that adults understand it. Small things can seem important. So I think when you put all of those areas of development together, the other thing is their social skills, which is another whole set of skills they need to develop. Taking turns, sharing, all of those things if not developed, and they can't really see the world from someone else's perspective. It's all from their own perspective. So I think that's why they happen.
I think the big question is, what can we do when tantrums happen?
I think that's a great question, and I don't think there's any really easy answers for it, because as we all know, often they might happen in the supermarket, and it's so embarrassing if you're walking down the supermarket aisle and they want a chocolate bar and you say no, and then there's this massive tantrum. One thing I think to remember is to be really kind on yourself. Remember that you're an amazing parent. Don't judge yourself because your child's having a tantrum. Know that it's developmentally appropriate for that to happen, and most other people, 90% of other people know that, and have actually had children that have had tantrums too. It's only the odd the grumpy old man that can't remember ever having children that doesn't understand, but everybody else does. Stay calm. I think once the child, you do have to wait it out, because you can't actually reason with children when they're in that really, really heightened state. But once they start to calm down a little bit, it's really important to acknowledge their emotions. Say to them, I can see you're feeling really angry, so that they can start to label what that emotion is. Children often don't know, it's just a big feeling. So if you can label it for them that that's anger, and then give them a really simple solution. Why don't we do this? Distracting works, and distracting is a great one for really little ones, just distracting them onto something else. I think another great one is just to give really simple choices. So if they're wanting a chocolate bar and you can't give them that because you just can't have chocolate bars every time you go to the supermarket, give 2 other really simple choices to make them feel like they're getting a little bit of power in what's happening. They say, I've got a banana, I've got an apple, which one do you choose? And often that will just distract them and take away, but they're still actually getting to choose something themselves. I think a really great strategy that a lot of people don't know is, as the children get their voice louder and they get louder and louder and louder, you should actually get quieter and quieter and quieter, because if you match them, you actually end up in this big heightened ego situation. Whereas if you start talking quieter, they will often bring themselves back down and try and match that quiet voice. So that's a really good little trick. Often older children actually do have the emotional regulation and the language skills to cope, and they're still having tantrums, you'll notice that some children keep having tantrums longer, and there might be different reasons for that, and if they're really severe I'd say go to your doctor, but it could also be that children have learnt that that's a strategy that works for them. So in the past they've had a tantrum and they've got the chocolate bar, that strategy is a great strategy and they just keep going with it. So just be aware of that as well if they're getting older and in the past that's sort of worked for them. Always think, what's the child getting out of this? Are they getting what they want? And what could I change? I think also it's really important to remember at the end of a tantrum that you need to repair with the child and build that relationship back up again. So just giving them a space to, if it has become a bit of an ego battle, just to repair with you and say to them, oh, it's fine, and distract and just get on with things, so that they have a chance to just think, oh, that doesn't matter, and we'll move on. They don't need to keep going. And I always think that with a fight, sometimes you're halfway through fighting with your husband and you sort of think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, but you're so you've been fighting for so long that it's hard to actually to turn it all around. So it's just about going, oh, let's just stop it and move on too. So yeah,
Awesome strategies. Thank you so much, Bridget.
thanks, Kim.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thanks, viewers.